If you feel it's almost impossible to dribble past defenders in division matches because your opponents are using high-class defending, then I must say this video will completely solve that problem. So yeah, there are actually some very common ways to lose control of the ball. And the easiest way to do that is by sprinting directly without any prediction or planning. Or when a dribble fails to execute, yeah, that's always a problem, I know. In most cases, your dribbles become easy to predict because your opponent is also a high-rank, experienced player. So, should you avoid dribbling? I don't think so. Not at all. Because avoiding the problem is always easier than facing the problem you're suffering from. Let's take this one step further. Whenever you shoot, pass, or even try to move somewhere, you often get blocked by your opponent. This happens simply because your movements are vulnerable, easy to predict, and easy to stop. It's not the fault of your players, and it's not the fault of your formation. Those things may give some benefits or create some problems, but the real foundation of exceptional movement depends on how well you understand your players. So let's make this simple. First, we'll learn how to use tricks with a player's movement momentum. See, before your player receives a pass, your joystick direction slightly turns his body posture towards that side. And this small action makes your next move or passing direction very easy to predict for your opponent. They can mark you based on that, drag their defender early, and no matter what, you'll lose control for sure. But no problem. Want to make it unpredictable? Then simply fake the movement momentum. Here's how. Before receiving the pass, move the joystick in any direction other than where you actually want to go. Your player will activate his body movement towards that side. Then, just before receiving the ball, move the joystick toward the direction you really want to go. This instantly makes your movement unpredictable. And saying this, I always respect players who prefer slow football build-ups, but I suggest you apply this technique slightly faster than normal to get the best results. But don't do this every time or everywhere. Use it only in scenarios where it's actually needed. Another very important thing, you must understand how your players act and move. Because if you don't have a clear idea of your player's movement behavior, you can easily fail while trying these tricks against strong opponents. And honestly, you won't remember all this during a vital match, so practice this multiple times in the training ground, then apply it gently from your very first match. After a few matches, your muscle memory will automatically understand when to use this movement and when not to. So, shall we move to the next point? The next one is doing a sharp touch in a very smart way. You can even call this an acceleration burst without using the premium acceleration skill. If you already have the skill, that's great, but if you don't, please be patient. I'll show you how to do it with normal players. First, you'll need high acceleration players like Neymar or Mbappe. These are elite dribblers with very high acceleration. So what's your job here? While sprinting, slightly drag the joystick backward or wait for the opponent to rush in for a tackle. Then swipe twice while dashing. This will trigger a sharp touch. This immediately activates the acceleration burst of your player. And if the player has 95 or above acceleration stats, the sprint becomes extremely powerful. This movement is phenomenal. It's almost impossible to predict or stop if the opponent doesn't hold matchup properly. And honestly, even matchup alone is not always enough to stop this move. You can mostly use this when an opponent is directly trying to tackle you, or at the very last defensive line where you pass to your forward and instantly perform a sharp touch for acceleration. This way, your player breaks through the defensive wall and attacks very easily. No matter whether you play slow or fast, or even if your formation isn't ideal for a fast playstyle, as long as you have a high acceleration player, you can perform this technique easily. Now, when should you avoid this move? There's no specific area to avoid it, but you should never use acceleration bursts when the opponent is holding zones from a distance, especially when they're using matchups smartly without committing to direct tackles. Practice this move in the training ground, but avoid practicing against AI teams, because AI already knows every single player movement perfectly. Now, acceleration sharp touches won't work every time, right? And in those moments, I personally prefer slowing down intentionally. This brings us to the next point, slowing down where it works best. See, most players rush constantly, believing that more pace makes them unstoppable. And, I mean, it's not completely wrong, but adding too much pace can kill patience and destroy well-planned attacks. If you always play fast, anyone can predict your playstyle. That's why I recommend slowing down exactly when your opponent least expects it. You guessed it. This gives you a sudden moment to decide your direction, flicks, or even glide through defenders. In most cases, opponents assume you'll change lanes or pass backward, so when you suddenly slow down, you gain a massive advantage. Here's how it works. When you're sprinting using dash, suddenly release the dash input. At that exact moment, your player stops instantly. Defenders, however, are still reacting to your sprint, making it extremely hard for them to stop you. But don't do this if your opponent isn't aggressive. Only aggressive defenders get baited by this move. This is crucial in the final third. Whenever you sense pressure tackling or defensive congestion and speed or dribbling won't save you, slowing down becomes the perfect solution. Now, if you've watched until this point, you probably understand one key thing. If you can confuse your opponent and freeze their defenders for a moment, you can play way better than relying on basic tactics alone. So don't just fake movement momentum. Also, fake your shots. This is a very important move. When you fake a shot, defenders get stuck in a defensive animation for a brief moment, and that tiny window is enough for you to move past them. It's extremely effective in player versus player matches. My personal suggestion is this: never spam simple, predictable moves. In high-rank matches, those are the easiest things to read and stop, just like I showed at the beginning. Also, don't spam fake shots. Use them at the correct time, and never fake shots in congested areas. Use other methods instead. These joystick techniques can massively improve your division match results. And if you watched until this point, make sure to hype the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on this video to learn total 50 vital tips to cover almost everything about this game.